Veterans Memorial Town Hall at 6:15 p.m. It's a special portion of our agenda for interviews for applicants for the Human Resource Coordinator. And just to state that in accordance with the Governor's ruling of almost a whole year ago, this meeting of the Raynham Board of Selectmen is being conducted with the members of the Board of Selectmen being the public body members in person here at Veterans Memorial Town Hall, and the public following the proceedings remotely. Every effort has been made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order, either by watching the Raynham Channel, using the GoToMeeting app, or calling in during the open meeting portion of the agenda when we ask for public input. And we have two applicants that have been forwarded to us, finalists by the search committee for the Human Resources Coordinator position. And I would like to welcome Kelly Usher. Thank you for coming in. Kelly is our first applicant. And just to introduce to you the members of the board, I'm Pat Riley. This is our Vice Chairman, Joe Pacheco, and our Selectman, Richie Chavo. And again, thank you for applying and for coming in. And first, maybe we'll have questions from the board, but maybe if we could just get started, if you could give us a little background, please describe your educational background and career experiences that you've had, and how that relates to the Human Resources Coordinator position. And then from there, we'll go to questions from the board.
So I've worked in HR my whole career. I studied it in undergrad at Bryant University. And from there, I've had a variety of HR roles at different companies. I started off as a HR generalist, basically, being the point of contact for any HR questions, policies, benefits, all of that at the Stride Corporation, which is a footwear company. We had employees doing retail, wholesale distribution, and manufacturing. So I started off as a generalist there, and then while I was there, I became a specialist in compensation and benefits, and my career went into a more specialist position within HR. I was at Stride until for about 5.5 years or so, and then I made the move over just out of interest of trying a different industry. I went to Digitas, and first as their compensation person and HR systems. And then I had an opportunity to actually move overseas with them to London. And while I was in London, I became a generalist again, doing soup to nuts HR, recruiting, the whole gambit of benefits, all of that. So I was with Digitas for several years, moved back to the US, and I was the HR partner for all of their corporate groups, IT, finance, HR, all of the corporate support folks. And then I did a contract position. Digitas actually was acquired by a much larger company. My role went away, but I went to go work for one of their sister agencies called Publicis Modem. And there I did a combo role. I was first hired to look at all of they had two agencies merging together, had different policies, procedures, perks, and my role was to kind of look at them across and come up with a centralized, harmonized benefits and processes there, as well as titles, making sure people that did the same job in both sides of the agencies, that they had similar titles. So I did that contract. It was supposed to be 3 months. It ended up being more like 10. And then from there, I went to go work for Weber Shandwick, and Weber is I was based in Boston. And over the course, I was there almost 10 years, and when I started, I handled Boston, and then I took on Atlanta and a big group in New York, the healthcare communications team there. So did everything in HR there at Weber. They're a public relations agency.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll go to Mr. Pacheco for questions.
Thank you. Kelly, thank you for coming in. I appreciate it.
Yes.
I think I only have 3 questions for you. The first is your HR experience, while deep, is lacking in the public sector.
It is.
What made you want to switch gears? You talked about different industries in the private sector. What makes you want to go to the public sector?
Well, I love the challenge of it. I really enjoyed when I went from footwear company to a professional services company. It just I love doing HR. It's what I've done my whole career. And to learn a new industry or a new kind of organization, and the specifics to that organization, I think would be just personally enriching, I'm specifically looking to make a move away from professional services, and I thought this sounded great. I love the idea of a role that's embedded in the community and that contributes to the community. I miss that. So.
Okay. How would you handle, or how have you handled a situation where your professional HR recommendations or advice has been contrary to what your supervisor might be wanting? How would you handle that dynamic?
That happens, and and if it's a difference of opinion or a difference of approach, that's one thing. If there's a risk to the organization, I would be more forceful, but more of just here's what based on my HR expertise and experience, here's what I would recommend. If they say, and if they say I want to handle it differently, and it's not going to cause like a major, kind of legal issue for the organization, then that's their call. They're the manager, they're the leader there. My role is to consult and advise. Now, if it's something that seriously, it's a discrimination claim, and they want to blow it off, well, then then I'll raise it up to whatever the next level is there, because then the organization has a risk. So
Good.
That's kind of how case by case basis.
So then, in essence, you would not be adverse to having that type of dynamic if you deemed professionally it to be necessary?
No, I
Okay.
mean, no, it happens. You
Yeah.
don't always see always on the same page, but
Yeah.
I have a lot of experience, in HR, so I can feel comfortable in my recommendations.
Okay. In terms of labor relations, and I oversee labor and HR, so I understand there's some real differences between them, but we have labor council, we don't have a labor staff person, so you'd have some crossover with the labor piece. I would venture to guess, based upon your experiences, you don't have any direct labor relations experience dealing specifically with public unions or any unions. Do you have any concerns with that, or how would you deal with that?
Well, StrideRite actually had unionized employees. They
Okay.
had some of the retail employees, a small portion, and then their manufacturing employees. So I have dealt with, working under sort of the union guidelines
Okay.
and working with folks in the union. We had, in StrideRite, a couple of times we had a closed down facility, so we worked closely with the unions there. Me for more of a benefits perspective of like both, what the benefits package is going to be, but then also how do we get with the town to figure out like new job opportunities for folks, because these manufacturing facilities were in the middle of nowhere, so there's not a lot of job opportunities. So we would kind of work with town and union and how we can help.
Great. All right. That's all I have, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Patino. Mr. Shavo?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of questions, Kelly, if I may. In two of the positions you had, both Weber and also at Digitus, you used the word you partnered with, in one case, senior management, and in the other case, Digitus, you partnered with leaders. Tell me a little bit more about what that entails.
I would say it's a consulting, advising kind of role and relationship with managers and with leaders. I see HR as kind of an integral part of an organization. How can I bring my expertise and work with you so that you're trying to sell more or something, and how can I help you from an HR perspective, make employment decisions and promotions, hires, all of that to kind of help you achieve your goals, your business goals. So I see that as a partnership of working with business leaders.
Yeah. So in that case, did you establish goals up front with management, or did you follow through with post meetings after implementing? What was the mechanisms by which you partnered?
So some of the things that we did, that I've done, we've done, talent reviews, and we sit down and let's look at staff and where they are in their development and come up with goals, for individuals, kind of helping them to figure out, okay, this person has a lot of potential. What are we doing from a development perspective to get them trained, to get them educated, to have them shadow people? So I see that's where, I talk about the employees with the leaders and, how we can advance, the business from an HR perspective.
One last question, Madam Chair, if I may. The HR position in a small organization, which this is relatively small compared to, some of the organizations you mentioned, for sure, Stride-Rite and so forth. The HR position is probably something that would be a bit more flexible here than what it might be in a larger, wearing, I'm going to say loosely, wearing multiple hats.
Mm-hmm.
How comfortable are you with the fact that, there might be some administrative activity that might be part and parcel of the larger HR, parameter? How do you feel about that?
I feel great about that. I love the variety of work in HR. When I was at Weber Shandwick's a bigger company, but each office sort of works very independently. So I was the one that was entering time into a spreadsheet to send into payroll, as well as working with leaders on bigger initiatives. So I'm very hands-on in my roles. I look for that. I'm looking for that now in my next role. I want something hands-on. I don't want to just sit in meetings and talk about things. I want to do stuff.
Okay, thank you. I'm set, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Just a few things, Kelly. How do you describe what we're looking for a human resources coordinator? What do you see as the roles and responsibility of the position?
I think from reading the job description and the conversations I had last time when I came in, it sounds like you're really looking for a centralized HR person that has that knowledge and expertise that sounds like is done by different people now. A go-to person, somebody that can give advice and counsel on any type of employee issues. That's keeping current on what's going on outside, of changes, the Massachusetts Equal Pay Act or those kind of things. Somebody that has their eyes open and ears open to kind of bring that in and say, okay, let's look at how we're going to do this. That's kind of how I've perceived it.
Since you haven't had that specific municipal experience, how do you plan to handle that, or what steps would you take?
Well, I would talk to the department leaders, talk to Graham and everybody. What I've done when I moved into PR is I reached out to people that worked in HR at other agencies, and made connections there. So when we could get together and kind of run things, by each other. So I would look to network within other HR folks in other towns, and as well as just really get up to speed with talking to leaders here, department heads, and get up to speed that way. I'm a quick study.
Great. Since you'll be coming in as sort of the new guy on the block, what will your transition plan be?
I mean, I would love to, be able to sit down with the different leaders and kind of, as a first step, learn about them, learn about their teams, any concerns they have, what are their priorities for their teams, as well as like where HR can help, and then come up with a plan for there and how I can do that, and then just get out and meet people. It's a little different now with COVID, I know, but get out there and meet people and talk to people and make sure they know who I am, so that they start to build that trust to come to me if things come up.
Can you give us an example of a creative solution that you proposed to meet a difficult challenge that you faced in one of your previous jobs?
Let's see, a creative solution to a problem. I should have this right on the tip of my tongue, but I'm blanking a little bit. Let's see.
Maybe dealing with difficult personalities.
I've had a lot of experience.
I'm sure you run into that quite a bit. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we've had some issues in one of the offices that I worked with, that we had the head of the office change like 4 times within a year and a half. There's a lot of change going on, and people get nervous when they keep seeing that happening. So one of the things that I propose with our leaders is a more formalized way of sitting down with employees, just to temperature gauge how they're doing, what their concerns are. If they're concerned about this, sometimes the big boss leaves, and it's like, they were developing me and now they're leaving. Where does that leave me? So having our leaders go and connect individually with the people on their team, just to do a temperature check and then report back, and then I can look and see some analysis there. Are they really concerned about that, or are they concerned, about opportunities going away for them? So that was one way that we did kind of a formalized touch base with employees, report back, and look at the results.
Can you tell us something that you're really proud of that you were able to accomplish in one of your positions?
So when I started with the Boston office for Weber, they had like no onboarding at all. They basically gave people a benefits packet and some forms, and that was it. So one of the things, I know how critically important it is to get people started off on the right foot. I started an orientation program, first building out the HR piece and making sure they have everything they need from policies and benefit stuff, but also having getting them information about the organization and the history and the who's who and all of that, and I built that out. And because when I first started there, I'd always do exit interviews when people were leaving, and I was hearing a theme of, like, when they started, it just wasn't a good experience. Their managers weren't ready for them. They were just kind of sat at a desk and try to, left on their own for a bit. And so then I got that feedback, and I, kind of gave managers, here's some checklists, here's some things to get ready for your employee. Make sure, 101, make sure when they're done with me doing paperwork that somebody's there to greet them and show them around and introduce them around. Like, just really building out that first day, first week, first month kind of orientation.
What do you think will be the biggest challenge about the Raynham position?
I think it sounds like they haven't had somebody kind of doing this, so whenever it's a brand new position, it's going to take some time for me to build those relationships and become a trusted advisor. Right. And also, there is, as we talked about, a learning curve of things I'm going to need to know, like how things are done differently. I've never been on camera in an interview before, so it's a different experience. It's something I'll need to kind of learn how things are different.
You brought up a good point. How do you get people to trust you that don't know you? Because obviously they're going to need to have that trust with you.
I have conversations. I reach out and say, hey, how are things going here? Anything I can help with? And then as they come to me, doing my best to give them, what they need, the information that they need to, just to kind of, once they see, oh, actually, she can be helpful to me, then they'll come back, and then they'll come for me to advice, come to me for advice. And also sometimes, leaders or, managers kind of, they don't know how to deal with the situation, but they're kind of afraid to say, and as you build that, you start to help them with like a particular issue, and then then they'll come to you proactively. So it's really talking and connecting and getting to know them and their priorities at work.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, Mr. Pacheco?
No, nothing. Thank you, Kelly.
Mr. Shavo, anything else you want to tell us, Kelly?
No, I think this would be a great opportunity for me. I think I would do a good job. So I hope that you will consider me in that respect.
Thank you.
And I appreciate the time and being invited back in.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thanks for coming in. For those that may be joining us, we have two applicants. We're going to interview both and then take a little time, the board, to discuss and see if we want to make a decision this evening, take it under advisement, whatever is the decision of the board.
Yep.
We're all set. Good evening, Sarah. Thank you for coming in. You can stand right up there at the podium. Just want to introduce you. I'm Pat Riley. Our vice chairman is Mr. Joe Pacheco, and our selectman, Richard Dick-Shavo.
Good evening. Nice to meet all of you.
Thank you so much. If we could begin, we have questions, Sarah, but maybe if we could begin by just asking you if you could briefly describe your educational background and your career experiences that you've had that are relevant to the Human Resources Coordinator position.
Sure. I have just under 12 years of progressive human resources experience. I pivoted into human resources after working as a manager for Nordstrom for about 5 or 6 years, which really gave me an excellent foundation in customer service. And when I decided to pivot out of that industry and into human resources, I looked at what I really enjoyed about that role, which was employee development and training, and really just helping employees be successful in their role through coaching. Human resources seems like the logical path. And so I transitioned to a role at FGX International, which was an HR payroll coordinator role. It was largely administrative. I served as the backup for payroll and administered the HRIS system for about 3,000 employees. I was also the first point of contact for any employee questions or concerns. And it was a great role, and I was happy to be in it and learned a lot about HR record keeping, which really served as a foundation and something that I still refer to and rely on today. I transitioned out of that role and into an HR assistant role for Stewart Healthcare out of St. Anne's Hospital. This was an opportunity to move away from the payroll aspect and focus mostly on the HR aspect of it. In that role, I served as the first point of contact for about 2,000 employees, both on-site and at satellite locations. I conducted new hire orientation as well as benefits orientation in a classroom setting about once a month, and again was really there as sort of the gatekeeper for the Human Resources Department, resolving what I could before it needed to be escalated. Also a really great opportunity, and I learned a lot there. I was then contacted by a talent acquisition specialist from Gordon Food Service, who presented an opportunity to grow into a human resources generalist role, and that was really moving away from the administrative HR function and more into a broad scope of really transactional HR roles. So it was, again, providing support for all the employees, but also now providing support for leaders as well. That role supported the lead management function, benefits communication, sourcing in the community, recruitment, onboarding through the first 90 days of employment to include new hire orientation, and then it really grew over a 5-year period to a HR business partner role, where we were really partnering with the leaders to ensure success for them and their employees through policy interpretation, training and development, coaching and development, everything from the disciplinary action process to day-to-day hiring needs.
Okay, thank you. Questions, Mr.
Yes,
Pacheco?
thank you. Thank you for coming in, Sarah. A couple questions for you. The first is looking at your resume, a lot of depth in terms of HR experience, but none in the public sector. Can you speak to why you felt it was a good opportunity or time for you to make the switch?
Sure, yeah, so that's actually what intrigued me about this role. I think that, in HR we really look to simplify things, do two things. We look to find the best quality talent, attract them, hire them, and then retain them. So when I look at the benefits that are offered in the public sector, there's, I think, a better argument for longevity and tenure than what I'm seeing in the public sector. And one of the things that have been a big conversation in my HR roles in the past 5 to 7 years has been turnover. It's hard to keep employees engaged and vested in their role when there's a very competitive market out there. And it's something that we spend a lot of time on. And I feel, when an employee steps into a role in the public sector, we look at those roles as hire to retire roles, right? Certainly we have a very solid retirement plan through the pension system, excellent benefits. When we're not as concerned with turnover, we can focus on things like engagement activities through training and recognition and reward and development opportunities.
If I could have a follow-up to that quick. So if I'm hearing you correctly, typically what I've seen with HR professionals is they tend to be more reactive than proactive, and it seems like your style or philosophy would be just as much proactive as it would be reactive?
Sure. I think, if you ask any HR professional, they're going to ask you that they would prefer to be proactive versus reactive, right? I think every HR department starts their years out with strategies and plans, but, the business can be volatile at times, and you do have to be reactive. And when we're focused on your human capital management that's required to run the business successfully, sometimes we have to pivot away from those strategic initiatives and focus on what we need to focus on to keep the business operational. And, we talk about things like recruitment efforts and disciplinary action and things of that nature.
Okay. So how would you or how have you handled a situation where when you've presented your professional HR opinion on a matter and your boss wants you to go in a different direction? How do you handle that dynamic, or how would you handle it?
Well, I think that when we look to resolve any HR issue, it's a collaboration, right? Not just between me and my direct supervisor, but between the manager of that employee, right? So we look at the situation, we look at the impact on the business, we look at our policy and procedures, and then we look at our best practices surrounding those policies and procedures and their operations, and we try to make the best decision for the business. At the end of the day, human resources is a support function, right? We're there to support our leaders in the organization to manage their employees so that they are engaged and successful, invested in their role, and to reduce liability. We're there to provide guidance and provide all the information surrounding that, but at the end of the day, it's the leader or the department head who's going to make that decision on how to proceed.
So even though if that particular person was going in the direction that in your interpretation was potentially illegal or a liability, you would still defer to that person?
So I would defer to that person to an extent. It depends on the egregious nature of what we're talking about, right? If I feel like the decision is going to be one that has affects the business negatively or creates a liability for the organization or is not within our best practices, and I feel like it's a risk, I have a responsibility to let that manager know that I'm going to include some other folks in it, right? And it might be our general counsel, it might be my boss, it might be their boss, but if we're taking a risk, other people other than myself and that manager need to be involved in that conversation.
Thank you. So the last question I have for you is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my assumption would be that in none of your stops you dealt with unions in a labor environment.
Yes.
And so that is, in the public sector, a significant piece.
Sure.
And fully recognizing there's some unique differences between labor relations and human resources,
Sure.
you would, where you're the only person on staff, have some interaction with CBAs and collective bargaining and the like. How comfortable would you be dealing with that, and any concerns do you have heading into doing something like that?
So that's also one of the areas of growth that excites me about this role. I don't have any experience there. I think that unions are going to be a part of our workplace environment, and that's something that I would like the exposure to and the opportunity to work in. I think that my approach to working within that arena would be really looking at that collective bargaining agreement like it would any other policy, right? It's there to govern the employee experience. It's there to manage employee expectations and there to provide a guidance on managers on how to manage their employees. And so I think it's all about interpretation.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have, Madam
Thank
Chair.
you, Mr. Pacheco. Mr. Shavo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think Selectman Pacheco has covered several of the questions I have, so I just have one additional one, Sarah.
Sure.
You talk about building relationships and serving as a partner. And would you just give me a little bit of a feel for how, in other words, lay out for me a bit of a platform of how you build relationships
Sure.
and partnering between, the management and the employees.
Yeah, sure. I think that, the key point to building relationships, whether it's with managers or employees, is touch points. You have to be present, right? So with my leaders in the beginning, I spend a lot of time with them. Our conversations might be once a week or every 3 or 4 days as I get to know the business and get to understand what they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, what their HR-related issues are, to get a feel for any potential issues that might come down the pipe. And then also, I like at least weekly or biweekly check-ins to touch base with any HR initiatives that they need to be aware of, and to let them know that I'm there to support them. It's about being approachable and being available, and also it's about building trust by providing the support that they need. And I think it's equally important to build those relationships with the employees. I think it provides a great pulse to what's going on within the department. If you're only speaking with the manager, you're only getting one perception of how you can best support that team. And so it's important to touch base with the employees too. And, I like to be present at pre-shift meetings or safety meetings. At times I will just show up at the times that the employees are coming in and out. I think the relationship begins for new employees during the onboarding process. HR has the benefit of being the first point of contact that these employees meet when they join an organization. So you're not only telling them all the good stuff, right? The reason why they join this company, you're talking about benefits and time off and recognition and reward and all the reasons that it's a great place to work. But you're also letting them know that you're there to support them. And so I believe in an orientation or an onboarding program that extends beyond the first day through the first 90 daes as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Shavo. Just a couple of things. Sarah, obviously you've looked into the town of Raynham and what our needs are. Anything specifically that you see about our HR coordinator's position that you think would be your biggest challenges, or how would you describe what you see as your roles and responsibility?
So actually, based on the scope of the role discussed in the first interview, it's all areas I'm very familiar with. Graham was nice enough to send over the recent audit that was conducted, and so that gave me some insight to what the onboarding process is like, what the recruitment process is like. As I understand it right now, it's sort of spread throughout the town. I think that based on the recommendation of that audit, it should be centralized. It sounds like there's some opportunity for onboarding and for centralized recruitment. And so I think that would probably be my focus within the first 6 months.
Okay. And about the fact that you haven't had actually the municipal experience, how do you plan to accommodate that, or what steps will you take to get yourself up to speed as far as the municipal aspects of the job?
Well, I think it's just like joining any new organization. The role that I'm in right now, I've been there for about 5 months, and it's about learning the different nuances of each department, getting to know the different leaders, understanding what level of support they're looking for from human resources, and really just taking time to get to know everyone and their role within the town.
Can you tell us one example of a situation, difficult situation that you had to deal with, that you came up with a creative solution?
So one of the things that I've taken, one of the strengths I've taken away from my past 2 roles is change management. My previous role, I worked for a company who had recently gone through an acquisition of a company who had been in business for over 100 years and had a lot of long tenured employees. And so it was a long-term goal of 3 to 4 years, getting them on board with the culture of the new company which I had been hired for. And one of the biggest struggles there was getting them in line with the culture, the employees, the managers, understanding that they were truly the ones keeping the culture alive and connecting with their positive behaviors with that culture. Luckily for these employees, this company had a recognition and reward system that had been in place for a while, and essentially what it was a gift card if you did something the right way. In an effort to continue that recognition and reward, which I think is important in building trust and relationships, I recommended that we tie that to the culture. So we created essentially an entirely new recognition and reward system that rewarded employees for positively contributing to the culture. So instead of, thank you for building that pallet the right way or loading that truck the right way, here's a $20 gift card, thank you for taking care of our customer today. By you doing that action, by you completing that action the correct way, you took care of our customer, which builds trust and builds our business. And so we really tied it to, without getting into the core values of this organization, tied their actions to the core values so they understood what each one of those values meant.
If you're selected for the position, what will your transition plan be? You're going to be the new kid on the block.
Yes.
How do you get in and make yourself someone that everyone feels they can trust?
Well, I think that it's a partnership with Mr. Waters about what the priorities are, right? I think that the first priorities are going to be consolidating those HR functions, and before I take those functions over, it's going to be getting to know those folks that are currently performing those functions, right? And understanding that I understand how they need to be performed. And from there, we can talk about other initiatives that we might have. In our first interview, we talked about performance management as something that was in the works or something that we'd like to add to the mix. I think that, again, it's all very reliant on relationships and time spent getting to know everyone. And so that's really how I would plan to do it, is get to know everyone through shared tasks.
Okay, all right, thank you. Anything else, Mr. Bishop?
None. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Shaffer, do you have anything else you'd like to tell us? Sarah?
No, I thank you for the opportunity for coming in and interviewing. I think this would be a great opportunity and a great partnership. I'd be happy to serve the town of Raynham in this capacity. And I don't have any other questions at this time.
Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
Mhm. Okay, we next have scheduled a little bit of time to discuss, if we want to at this point. I'll open it up to the board.
Madam Chair, what I would recommend, if the board's amenable to it, is we just take a brief recess. It's on the agenda again after, so it'll give us a few minutes to digest or run to the restroom or anything like that,
Sure.
and where it's already back on the agenda.
Okay,
Second that.
all right. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so we're in recess. We'll be back shortly. Good evening and welcome back to our meeting of the Raynham Board of Selectmen. It's 7 o'clock and we're here at Veterans Memorial Town Hall. And just to reiterate, if you're just joining us, that pursuant to the governor's order of almost a year ago, we are meeting here with the members of the public body, that is the members of the Board of Selectmen, in person at Veterans Memorial Town Hall, but asking the public to join us remotely due to the governor's order regarding certain aspects of the open meeting law and also the number of people that may gather in one location. Hopefully people can join us either by watching the Raynham Channel, using the GoToMeeting app, or by calling in, and we welcome that. So with us here we have our Vice Chairman, Mr. Joseph Pacheco, Selectman Mr. Richard Chavo, also our Town Administrator, Mr. Graham Waters, and our Fire Chief, Chief Brian LaCivita. So thank you all for joining us. If you're just joining us, we just had 2 interviews with the 2 of the finalists for the position of Human Resources Coordinator, and we will be discussing that later on the agenda. With that, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Next we have acceptance of the minutes of the March 2nd meeting, and I would ask for a motion to table that for 1 week.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Chavo, second by Mr. Pacheco. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. Department heads. We have our Fire Chief. Good evening, Chief.
I will be short tonight. We'll start with the total unforeseen overtime and extended coverage for firefighters injured on duty. Last month, we were at $83,519.84. Last month, we spent $9,523.50 for a grand total of $93,043.34. There were 91 fire incidents last month, 156 medical calls, and for inspections, we're at 56. And as of right now, we're at 494 runs, which is, we're coming into the point where last year we ended up in a lockdown, so it seems like the numbers are kind of following that pattern. And I would like to say, I know last week the building committee was here. I just want to thank you all. I know it's a long process and it's the beginning stages, but I appreciate all your support for the building, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Very welcome. Mr. Pacheco.
No questions. Thank you, Chief.
Mr. Chavo.
None. Thank you very much, Chief.
Chief, the firefighter on duty injury and off-duty injury, I hope they're making good progress.
Yeah, the firefighter that had been hurt and back in September is still at home rehabbing.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not expecting him back probably till September, but so far, so good with his rehab.
Good, excellent. Again, thank you very much, and thank you and all the members of your department for everything you do for us. We appreciate
Certainly.
it.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have an appointment of Mr. William August, attorney for Cable Council. Do we have a motion?
Motion to appoint.
Motion by Mr. Pacheco, second by Mr. Chavo.
Yes.
Any discussion?
None.
Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. Public hearings, we have none this evening. Completion of old continuing business. Discussion and action, the CERT coordinator position. Has the chief left?
Yes.
Okay.
You want me to grab one?
Yeah, if he wants to comment or if we have any questions on that. And we have a job description here that's been prepared. I'm sure, I think the chief actually prepared that for us. And this is, you all, as everyone knows, CERT is the emergency response team, and it's volunteers who are trained and support the community through our police and fire. And just briefly, it says the CERT coordinator shall be appointed by the Board of Selectmen in consultation with the Fire Chief Emergency Management Director. The function of the CERT coordinator is to provide a central coordinating point for effective volunteer management and to direct and assist staff and volunteer efforts to jointly provide more productive services. The CERT coordinator shall work with fire department staff on an ongoing basis to assist in the development and implementation of volunteer staffed positions. And it goes on, supervision. The position reports directly to and works under the supervision of the fire chief, emergency management director, or the command staff of the fire department. The CERT coordinator will dedicate a minimum of 3 hours a month to CERT activities. And Chief, do you want to comment on this?
So if the three of you are agreeable to that job description, I'm happy to move forward with it. Obviously, the stipend piece may be something we have to talk about, because the way the budget currently stands for emergency management, that would cut out half of that budget. So I'm not sure if you want to add money to that budget or speak to finance about that, or like me to speak to finance about that.
Okay,
But like I said, if you're agreeable to the job description in those terms, we can try to move forward then.
Thank you, Chief. Mr. Pacheco?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I'd motion to approve, let the chief post and conduct interviews and bring us a recommendation, as well as support the chief's request to increase the budget to offset the amount of this position.
Thank you.
Second that motion.
Any discussion?
None.
Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you so much,
Thank
Chief.
you.
Thanks, Chief.
Okay, thank you. And next we have discussion and action. Our Human Resources Coordinator, as mentioned, we had 2 excellent applicants that we interviewed earlier, Ms. Kelly Usher and Ms. Sarah McDougall, and I open it to the board. If we want to take action, table, it's the board's pleasure. Mr. Pacheco.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would be prepared if the board is amenable to moving forward with selecting a candidate and then having an executive session, because any motion to appoint would be contingent upon contract negotiations. I would say, first and foremost, as we've said before, kudos to the search committee for bringing forward 2 qualified candidates. I know Moderator Donahue spoke last week, I think it was, to us about the fact that the search committee was split 50-50, and I can certainly understand why that would be the case. To me, I feel like there is a slight edge to one particular candidate. That would be Ms. Usher Johnson, for a couple of reasons. First, she has some experience with unions and labor relations, which, while it wouldn't be a core function of this job, it would be a function of the job, so I think that would be beneficial. She has a little bit more length of experience in human resources. She has the education advantage with a master's degree as well as a bachelor's degree related to it. And a big question for me was, and that's why I made sure I asked both of them how they would handle a dynamic. We're in a situation now, we've never had an HR person before, and I think it's important to bring somebody in who's going to have a level of confidence to assert themselves and provide that professional experience, and if needed, escalate concerns that they might have to the next person, whether it be the board or somebody else. And I feel like Ms. Usher Johnson just kind of separated herself in those areas.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to second that motion, Mr. Shavo, just for discussion?
No, I think we're in the same situation as what the search committee was in, and so I'll leave this ultimately to your call. I gravitate towards Sarah McDougall, and the reason I do is because I was most impressed with the rationale for moving to the municipal arena from commercial. It was not just I'd like the challenge, but it was that she felt that she brought some skills that would be beneficial. I like her use of the phrase touch points in terms of building relationships, which means it's there's a one-on-one offline type of relationship, which I think is critical. So, and I also like the fact that there seemed to be a little more emphasis on developing than on recruiting, which I think is more consistent with a municipal situation. We don't have that kind of turnover, so we want a developmental mentality. As Selectman Pacheco said, and as has already been indicated, Both are outstanding candidates. It's a very difficult one. I lean towards Sarah, so I'll leave it up to you, Madam Chair.
Obviously, as mentioned, we have two excellent candidates.
Yeah.
Since it's not unanimous, and I would like it to be a unanimous, I would wonder if, Mr. Pacheco, you would be willing to withdraw your motion and we table it for 1 week so that we can maybe think
That's
about
good,
it
yeah.
a little bit
Yeah.
more. I mean,
Sure. Yeah, that's fine. I would withdraw and motion to take under advisement for 1 week.
Appreciate that, thank you.
I second that. That's excellent.
Okay.
Thank you.
And again, two excellent applicants, and I do want to go over their interviews today and some of their background information. So
Good.
appreciate that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. Thank you. And if you could relay that to the two applicants, we're very impressed with both of them. We're just going to do a little additional study before we make a final decision.
Good.
Next on our agenda, we have discussion and action Riverwalk LLC, and we have a guest with us here. Since it was on the agenda, I did convey through our town council that it would be nice if we had a little bit of explanation of what you have in mind there.
Okay, thank you. The planning board has a big easel, but
They don't let us use it, Dan.
we don't like to use it.
Oh, it's right behind you.
Oh, there it is. I'm not usually the one that sets it up, so it's so good doing it. I know this is where the camera can usually pick it up. I do believe that this.
We appreciate you coming in, Ms. Andrew.
That's all right. A little crooked, but. Okay. So, thank you for the invite. My name's Dan Andrade, and I live at 525 Church Street in Raynham. And I am the managing member of Raynham Riverwalk LLC. This project has been going on for quite a while. I purchased the property back in 2016. It's approximately 43 acres. The location of it is the intersection of Church Street. Up in the upper left-hand corner, you see Metro Ford, that big square up there. That's the Ford company. So right past Metro Ford, we own 1,500 feet from there to the Taunton River, which is the property line of Raynham. Coming down Church Street, there is the Volkswagen dealership, and then we have three residential homes. And they are residential homes, but they are all in business zone. This piece of property had 98% of the property was zoned business. And we had the balance. We did receive at town meeting an approval to zone the entire piece to business, just to unify the entire parcel. We originally started out at a 55 and older development, and that is allowed by special permit through planning board rules and regs. That process took a little over a year and a half, and at the end, the special permit was denied, but the subdivision construction, the subdivision roadway system, was approved through what they call a constructive approval. So all of the roadways that were in design for the 55 and older is what you see on the plan. That we have been working on probably over the last 9 months. So we are working under an existing approval. We do have all of our state DEP approval, conservation approval, wetland delineation. We have Mass DOT curb cut approval, and I think that's just about all the approvals. So what we did, we have it approved, we had basically an approved subdivision with 43 acres of business property. So we either decide to convert this over to a business park, or what we, in the end, what we decided to do was contact the state, and we got in touch with Mass Housing. Mass Housing, we filled out the application, worked through Mass Housing for a good 6 months, went through the whole process, and they gave us a letter of acceptance that allowed us to go to the next step. And what we are proposing is a 138-unit condominium complex. Each unit will be sold separately. It's a privately owned development. The project is, there will be condo fees, monthly dues, which will maintain all of the landscaping. It'll maintain the snow plowing, the roadways, and all the maintenance. The town of Raynham will have no cost, out-of-pocket expense, just like it would have been if it was the 55 and older. From the entrance on Route 44 to the entrance on Church Street, whether it's sewer, water, or highway, they have no expense that the town would be putting into the project to do any maintenance or plowing or anything else. That'll all be done through the homeowners association. So through Mass Housing, you have we have 35 units that are restricted at a cost of, I believe it's $242,500. We have to sell 35 units at $242,500, and those units cannot be sold for any more than that. And 35 units, the cost difference between what it's going to cost you to do those 35 units and what you're actually going to sell them for, it's almost an $8 million deficit. And that's why Mass Housing lets you build a more dense type project to make up for what you are putting out to create needed housing for that segment of the population. And I say that segment of the population, there's a threshold that they have that you would qualify for, and I believe it's $62,000 a year that if you can't make over that to qualify. Mass Housing does have a list that they have. It's a running list. The good thing is, part of the development, Mass Housing lets the developers choose from that list, and we get to pick through Raynham residents first, which is, our goal to have this project help within the town of Raynham. Obviously, the units are all going to be 3-bedroom. They are going to have at least 1-car or 2-car garage. The reason for the 3 bedrooms is we have found that through this pandemic, I myself live in a 3-bedroom house, and I sleep in one, and the other one's a spare bedroom, and the other one's a toy room for the grandkids. Well, nowadays with the pandemic, we have so many people working from home, that 3rd bedroom is not going to be used as a 3rd bedroom. In some cases it will, and when I was in front of the Board of Appeals, like I said, we are going to have kids that are going to be, part of this development, but what's wrong with that? This is, nothing wrong with the future, hopefully, selectmen and planning board members and, active community members of the town. So that's the one reason for the 3 bedrooms. The other reason for the 3 bedrooms, the state gives you a little more in the qualification and the price-wise, so we can, we can get a little more money for them, which in the end helps for make the whole project feasible. So where we are right now, we do have our letter of acceptance from the state of Massachusetts, and we have been in front of the Board of Appeals. They asked us to do a traffic impact study, hired a firm from Quincy that came in and did a whole book came out to be a traffic impact study. Majority of what they came up with in their study was relatively consistent with Route 44. The one thing that was, they did come up and say that the lights at Church Street are working as anticipated, but they are almost at their max capacity. So part of the project approval is that they recommended that we would redo those lights on Church Street, which you're redoing the infrastructure, the light fixtures, the lighting, the way it's controlled. I myself trying to scratch my head and say, how is that going to help traffic move easier? But apparently they can, the more modern style lights are easier to program. So that basically is the one major thing that for approvals, or for improvements, I should say, that we have to make as part of, and again, that was their recommendation will be to the Board of Appeals. We go back in front of the Board of Appeals on the 24th, I believe, this month. And so we did that. Right now, the review engineer for the town is reviewing that study and also the drainage calculations. Now, we already had done the complete drainage calculations for the project, which was already approved. So basically what they're doing is they're reviewing the modification to the drainage because now we have more impervious area because we have more buildings. So we had to add a couple of extra detention areas. And so that's what they're reviewing, and hopefully they'll be ready for the 24th of this month. We've been through the sewer department. We've had a couple of meetings over there. We have come to an agreement on what the sewer fees would be and what our responsibility would be. The entire project is going to be sewered by what they call E1 pumps, and E1 is kind of state of the art for when it comes to low pressure sewer systems. And the really impressive part of the sewer was when I met with them, they will be able to control the entire site from their office, which is F.R. Mahoney from, I believe it's Stoughton. They will be doing the oversight. They're the exclusive distributor for E1 pump systems. They will be able to monitor. We're going to have 35 buildings. Each building will have its own pump system, which will pump into a 2-inch line. They will be able to monitor each pump. Each housing will have 2 pumps in it. And they'll be able to monitor each pump because as you are looking at the length of the road from one end to everything that we're pumping to is going to Church Street. And so the furthest house that's going to be near Route 44 would have a higher pump capacity than the one closest to Church Street, because basically that's how they work. And they'll be able to monitor all the pumps that would be on the system and see 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, if a pump is starting to slow down, it will show that on their monitoring system. So instead of having pump failures, they can be proactive and go and replace a pump that's starting to slow in its process. And each unit will have double pumps, so if one does fail, we will still have another one. And one of our main concerns with having all pump systems is power failure. We wouldn't want 138 homes to not have pumps working for sewer, so we are providing generators. We're going to have a generator for multiple, like one basic large generator might service 3 buildings. We're in the process of having that all designed now. So it's a quite extensive and well thought out project. We've been working on it for a few years now, and we're pretty excited about it. We do have about 1,500 feet on the Taunton River, and if you see the right-hand side of that plan, the darker color, that's the Taunton River. And on the lower piece, you see a field, looks like a nice light color field area. I own all the land south of this project. I'm the largest abutter to the property. So from here all the way down to the Taunton River, we have 23 acres that used to be the Raynham Winery. And I bought that probably 20 years ago. And I built the houses on the front of Church Street. And then I put the balance of the property under agricultural and recreational protection that can never be taken out. It's not like a 61A where the property can be taken out and you pay back-to-back taxes. This property will never, ever come out of agricultural or recreation. Signed that way, that's the way the deeds are. And the reason why it's that way is because I did a TDR, transfer of development rights. You don't have the right to take it out because going through the TDR process, that's how it's worked. So that property is owned and maintained. We have some 4 cows there, some goats and a pony, and we maintain trails all through the woods, all along the Taunton River. And this project will have up in the front on Route 44, we are proposing a little dog park, fenced in, and we do have a half basketball court we're going to provide. And then the entire property runs all behind a lot of the units, and it runs all the way out to out to the Taunton River. We have walking trails, and it is absolutely phenomenal. If you see what's already made and cleared to the Taunton River, we're going to have picnic tables out there. They'll actually, you can walk right out and put a kayak or a canoe. So it's really, it's going to be a very nice project for the town of Raynham. It's going to be a very nice project for the people that are going to live here, because it's not, and I don't, use the word project. It's unlike an apartment complex, because usually you go in, you clear a big chunk, you put your buildings. We've seen enough apartments, the way they go up. This here, the way the wetland is configured, and the way the roadway had to work around the wetlands, it really worked out to be a very nice, and it's going to be a very nice looking residential place to live. You're going to be looking over all these people on the south side of the property. Is going to be looking over all fenced-in fields with corrals. It's all grazing area. So it's a beautiful piece. So since we've changed to this project with mass housing, I did go to every single neighbor that abuts the property and 300 feet from the property, and I did receive 100% support from every neighbor. I have signed letter from every individual, and we forwarded that along to the Board of Appeals. So we do have 100% support from the neighborhood, and the one neighbor that, and again, that was all abutters, and I should say abutters and people 300 feet from the backside of the property. We didn't go across the street because we had a couple of issues with the residents over there. But all of the abutters, we have all signed the petition. On the land, now this is the type of And again, these are preliminary sketches on what we are proposing. The buildings are going to be, there's 3 units, like you can see in the upper left-hand corner. It's going to be 3 unit. There's going to be 4 units, 5 units, and 6 units. There's only a few 6 units together. And the one thing with mass housing is nobody knows who paid the $242, because they're not just piled in one area. They're throughout. We have to place them throughout the entire project. Mass housing has the final say on that, and once we get through the Town of Raynham Board of Appeals, then we can go back to mass housing and finalize, the package with them. But it's, very nice looking buildings. They're all going to be owner occupied. We're not looking to rent out any of the units at this time. They're going to be, again, all 3 bedrooms. And we've already had a lot of inquiries about master bedrooms on the first floor, because a lot of people thought the 55 and older was going to go there. They still like the idea of not doing maintenance and not plowing and not cutting their lawn. So we're in the process of looking at seeing if we can incorporate some first floor master bedrooms. And again, that's coming from people that live in Raynham who don't want to leave Raynham. So we're looking into that. And so it's going to be a very nice project. Unfortunately, we're hitting the highest market in material prices. Material prices are going crazy. So we've been researching some alternative ways of building, which is light gauge metal framing, surprisingly enough. And we seriously are considering doing the entire project with light gauge steel. And that would be, I would love to. In the past, I would always like to do that, but the cost was always a bit too much of a difference. Well, nowadays, it's not much of a difference. So the nice thing about that is insurance rates would be better. The no movement, no shrinkage, no, everything stays the way it is. It's really becomes a nice structure, a nice building. So pretty much that's it. We worked with the Postal Service, found out where they would like to have we're going to have a main postal stop, and we worked with them. It's kind of centralized in the middle of the property. And so right now we're finalizing up with water. Water said there's plenty of, the water department, Raynham Center Water said there's plenty of water to service the project. We're just working out the final fees. And we're going to be ready to go back to the state. And so I think it'll be a great project for the town. I plan on doing all the construction, overseeing all the construction. I don't plan on developing, getting all the permits and selling it. So I'll have my hands full. I always said I was going to be retiring when I was 55. Well, looks like I might be retiring when I'm 65 now. So, and even that, it's going to take me probably a good 5 years. 138 units. If I did, 30 a year, there's between 4 and 5 years. You'll know where to find me. Put it that way.
Oh, thank you, and thanks for coming in, Dan. Any questions, Mr. Pacheco?
No, I wasn't aware you were coming in or doing a presentation, so it was a pleasant surprise, but I appreciate that, and definitely a lot of information for me to digest. So,
thank you. Mr. Shaver, any questions?
You've covered a lot of specific areas. It's amazing. You could almost write a book on all of the levels that you're dealing with. So it is truly a bit of homework. I see that, but no questions. Thank you for the explanation of how you're proceeding.
Yeah, thank you for coming in, Jen. When we had it on the agenda, I had asked through town council if you could come and explain to us, give us a little preview of what you have planned there. I think obviously from what you're saying, even though it's not the adult retirement community, it has a lot of the advantages that our seniors were looking for in adult retirement community. As you said, the you know, the not having to worry about plowing, shoveling your driveway or the roads and so forth.
Right.
So,
And the ongoing maintenance and,
we had the maintenance, exactly.
Yeah.
And we know certainly that you do a quality development, so appreciate that. And we have before us a letter here that our town council drafted saying, "We, the Selectmen for the town of Raynham, support the approval and development of the 138-unit Raynham Riverwalk project, as the same will provide quality, moderate-income housing for the citizens of Raynham and the surrounding towns." And as you said, if any of our Raynham residents are on the mass housing list for affordable housing, they can be given priority. So.
correct. We,
Great.
as the owners and developers of the project, we pick who, you know, who we sell to through that list. What we would do, as soon as we get to that stage with the state and we do receive the list, I'll report back to the selectmen to let you know the process for people to apply, because there are, I'm sure there's going to be people in town. I've already had a few contact me wanting to know how they could get an application. So there will be additional people that would want to be on that list, and I would think that the state would let us put them to the top, seeing that we are allowed to pick Raynham residents first. So it would be kind of silly for them to put them on the bottom of the list when we have a project in front of us that is ready to go. So we will, I'll present that, you know, when the time comes, that, so everybody knows. And once we get started, it'll be on the website. And
Well, I know from surveys that we've done, one major issue is the need for affordable housing in town. So certainly, you know, this helps address that issue. Do we have a motion relative to the letter?
Motion to approve.
Second the motion.
Any further discussion?
None.
Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. You have a unanimous vote on that.
okay, thank you very
you.
much. And I will keep you informed as, you know, once we get our approvals, we'll be back in touch.
Thank you, Jan. We also have before us a settlement agreement and release. I have a couple of just questions. We had asked for a little change in some of the wording, which I haven't seen yet. So I would ask if we could table that for
So
1
moved.
week.
Second.
Any further discussion? None, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So we'll put that on the agenda for a vote at next week's meeting. Thank you very much. Okay, next we have new business, discussion and action, Animal Control Officer. Mr. Shavo, you had asked for this on the agenda.
Yes, I did. Thank you, Madam Chair. We're going through a period of a change with the animal control officers. We're looking for a part-time person. Money is very, very tight. Their budget is, it makes it very, very difficult to find somebody. Just to recap, the budget includes $14,000 each for 2 people, and it's not easy to find somebody that's on call all day or all night for that kind of money. So I'm putting before the board a motion to add to the total budget of $28,000 another $9,000, which will at least help a bit. It doesn't really take us over the top by any means, but it gives us a little more flexibility of dealing with the recruiting or the finding a person. So that's my motion.
I would second that, Madam Chair.
Okay. Motion and second.
Yep.
Under discussion, in what would the, just for clarification, Mr. Shavo, what would the additional $9,000, that would be to increase the compensation for the 2 part-time people?
Yes, and
Okay.
yes, it would, Madam Chair. And to that point, let me add one other motion to, I think, deal with that in a much more structured way. I would also like to motion that the board approve a very modest study by the Collins Center, as we've used them effectively in several other areas, in order to give us a plan of how to best apply the monies that are available. I think it would be good to have an outside group say, look, you've got 14, 14, and 9, and you've got animal inspection on the other side. You know, I don't think it would be very involved, but I think it would be good to have an independent kind of an approach to help us make a final decision in how we apply the 9,000. So that would be a second motion of mine.
Okay, so we'll take them I guess we could take it as a combined motion.
Okay.
So to increase the animal control budget by $9,000.
Correct.
And to check with the Collins Center about doing a study of how they would recommend best allocating those funds.
Yes, that would be perfect.
I'll second for discussion.
Okay.
I would just say not just about allocation of the funds, but kind of an executive overview of the structure of the department.
Yeah.
I think that would be prudent.
Yeah. I would agree with that. I second that.
Okay, okay, so we have a motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it is a vote. Thank you. All right, next on our agenda, we have town administrators report. Mr. Waters.
Ongoing projects, the General Code bylaw project is moving forward. They have begun to review the past annual reports. Town clerk and I have been working collaboratively on this project and will keep the board updated as it moves forward. The finance director town accountant search has been posted by the Collins Center. Review of resumes will begin on March 22nd. The Community Compact Best Practices Grant. As mentioned in my Friday report, the town was awarded $33,000 from the State Community Compact Best Practices Grant. $20,000 of these funds go toward the recently completed organizational and HR review, and $13,000 funds a wage and classification study. The sewer bills have been sent out. These are semi-annual sewer bills or mailed out to residents today. Residents should be on the lookout for those arriving soon in their mailboxes. The next regularly scheduled Selectmen's meeting will be on Tuesday, March 16th, 2021 at 7 p.m. right here in the Don McKinnon Meeting Room of Town Hall, 558 South Main Street, Raynham, Massachusetts. The public will be able to participate via GoToMeeting meeting platform or by watching the Raynham Channel on Verizon, Comcast, or on a recording posted later on YouTube. The Finance Committee is meeting tomorrow at 6 p.m. at the Senior Center. They also have an online option for people who want to log on and listen to the meeting. And the Capital Planning Committee meeting is meeting the very next day on March 11th at 6:30 p.m. online via Zoom meeting platform. Please contact the Treasurer Collector, Mike King, for login information. He can be reached at 508-824-2702. Again, that's 508-824-2702. Important project is being discussed by both of those committees. The Public Safety Building Committee will be presenting the same presentation or a modified presentation that the board received. Going to be a little bit shorter in number of slides and discussion time. So if the public would like to tune into either of those meetings to learn more about the Public Safety Building project, they're encouraged to do so. Madam Chair, that is all I have unless there's questions or comments by the board.
Any questions, Mr. Pacheco?
None, Madam Chair,
Mr.
thank you.
Shavo? I have nothing. Thank you for the report. Mr. Waters. Selectmen's report. Mr. Pacheco.
Madam Chair, nothing this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Shavo?
Nothing, Madam Chair.
Okay. Only as been mentioned before, I believe the Master Plan Committee workshop is tomorrow evening if you missed the first one, and I think you can still register for that. You can check that out through our website. Next we have correspondence. Mr. Waters, do we have any correspondence?
Not this evening, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Press time, does anyone, I'm going to combine press time and citizen and community input, because we don't seem to have much of either. Anyone out there?
So sorry, Mike's saying no, Madam Chair.
Oh, good. Okay, thank you. Emergency business, Mr. Pacheco?
None, Madam
Mr.
Chair.
Shavo? I have none. Performance of administrative duties, approval of Town of Raynham invoice and payroll warrants. Motion by Mr. Pacheco.
Second.
Second by Mr. Shavo. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So voted. I'm looking for a motion to approve the Raynham Police invoice and payroll warrants.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Shavo. I will second that. Roll call, Mr. Shavo.
Aye.
Mr. Pacheco.
Present.
Chair votes aye. That is 2-1. Well, 2 with 1 abstention. And gentlemen, do we wish to go into executive session?
Where it's been tabled, Madam Chair, I would say there's no need. I would motion to adjourn, sign the bills, and no business thereafter.
Okay, second. And at 7:43 p.m., we are adjourned. Thank you so much for joining us. Please have a safe week.